Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Daniel. I am the director at the Center for Cinesomatic Development and the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. Today, we're going to be doing a reading from this book live. And after the reading, or maybe during it, if some questions come up, we'll have a Q&A and discussion afterwards. So we have Jay here, Sewell, Geraldine, Agoda. Welcome, everybody. Colorado. Excellent. Thank you for getting the book. How do you like it so far? All right. So, you love it. Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm glad. Your opinion may change as you get deeper into it, but most people that get through the book get a lot of value from it, even though it can be a little confronting. So we're going to be reading. I wanted to read from a part on the avoidance of life. And this is chapter, I don't know what chapter it is. 6. What chapter is it? They're not numbered. They're titled. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chapter 8, Avoidance of Life. And why I'm picking this chapter is because this is related to a somatic meditation that we just did around anxiety. And so this seemed very apropos to read from the book on the avoidance of life and how that relates to anxiety. All right, where do we want to start? All right, so let's start with, let's start with the origins of mistrust. Oh gosh. As I read it, I'm like, we gotta go back and back. Because it needs this and this. All right, so let's just go into the origins of mistrust. The following are a few of the many stories we have about why we can't trust. Bring up the little book. And let's get this going too. The following are a few of the many stories we have about why we can't trust. This mistrust often begins with the mother and father. Parents are our doorway into this world, and as such, they have dominion over us for a significant length of our early development. They are our primary images of the masculine and feminine archetypes, which determine to a great extent our default way of relating to men and women, and our own internal masculine and feminine aspects. If there are circumstances such as abuse, lack of security, needs that aren't met, violence, or abandonment, our trust is tarnished. Even less extreme dysfunction, such as prolonged manipulation, head games, teasing, judging, or not following through, can damage trust. If we can't depend on our parents for love, providing, and security as a child, who can we depend on? Mistrust continues with ourselves. Our bodies are clumsy and fallible. We make choices and discover we can be wrong often. We attempt and fail and then experience humiliation. We go to make a new friend and get rejected. We believe somebody who is lying, and then we feel stupid and foolish. We give our choices meaning and stop trusting ourselves. We ourselves lie, deceit, and steal from others. We ourselves break our promises and let others down. If we can't trust ourselves, it sets the stage for systemic distrust. Mistrust also occurs with our body. We could be abused or touched inappropriately and then get blamed because of our body, or come to that conclusion on our own. We get bullied and teased because we look different. We get treated poorly because of our gender, age, ethnicity, or weight. We can have a sickness or disease that limits us, or we could have been taught our immune system is not enough. We learn to discriminate against our body, not trusting it is perfect for us. We have experiences in life interacting with other people that give us reasons not to trust others. We get abused, hurt, bullied, or violated. We get lied to, deceived, and manipulated. People abandon us or disappoint us. We see the deception in the media and the corruption in government and business. We learn that we can't rely on other people, from showing up on time to being the source of our happiness. We could have also learned to mistrust nature. We judge and distort the cycles of life, such as death and birth, and hunting and growing. We fear the animals of the wild that can get us. We see the instability of weather patterns and their destruction. We may have been taught about germs, diseases, plagues, and the dirty world. We may see the brilliance of man and civilization and see it as superior to the archaic ways of the wild. We could have been told that only technology will save us from the natural courses of life, that how nature works is wrong or lacking something. Our experiences or dogmas could lead us to a mistrust against God or spirit. Perhaps we see the corruption and superstition of religions and decide science has all the answers. We could have lost someone we love and feel anger towards a higher power. We judge others for their ignorance and reject their belief system. We may have had something terrible happen to us and think, "Why did you do this to me?" We could have prayed for years without our pleas for help being answered. We could have grown up and been force-fed ideologies that we are now rebelling against. We may have felt like we were abandoned and deserted by God. We may not have had any connection with or awareness of something greater than the material and simply don't know any different. Finally, we can have a lack of trust in life itself. We could have had a rough time experiencing challenges and letdowns. We may have failed and been rejected over and over again. We can look out at the world and see despair, suffering, and hopelessness. We could have had our dreams stolen from us by a soul-crushing job or a tragedy. We may feel like we were given a bad hand at life. Perhaps we've seen the hard, miserable lives of those around us. Maybe we've seen the lack of justice and fairness in the world system and have given up. Life itself cannot be trusted. All of what you heard, are justifications for our lack of trust. If any of this was your experience, I acknowledge that they are valid, real, and did happen. You have every reason not to trust. Pain and hurt have happened, and there's nothing I could write to take that away from you. You may have had a chest full of reasons why you can't or shouldn't trust yourself, others, or life. Your justifications for not being able to trust are understandable. I have no interest in convincing you to stop being afraid and to start trusting in life more. If you are all set and perfectly happy being closed off, skeptical, and protected, then it's not my place to tell you what's better for you. It's a perfectly valid choice that is somehow still serving you. However, if you have a feeling your lack of trust is causing you to suffer more than it's helping, then I invite you to begin surrendering. if you can start to surrender more, rather than control or avoid, you will, by necessity, be trusting more. This requires you to let go of control and go into what you're avoiding, rather than running away or defending against it. Facing it is the only way through. Surrender is how you begin to get unstuck. This is a quote by J. Krishnamurti. You must understand the whole of life, not just one little part of it. That is why you must read. That is why you must look at the skies. That is why you must sing and dance and write poems and suffer and understand. For all that is life. End quote. Why this causes us to avoid life. A lack of trust in life leads us to avoid it. The avoidant life is inherently also the untrusting life. If you are just joining us, my name is Andrew Daniel. I am reading from my book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. In the chapter Avoidance of Life. A lack of trust in life leads us to avoid it. The avoidant life is inherently also the untrusting life. We stay away from what makes us uncomfortable or what is perceived as dangerous. This is the biological purpose of fear, to keep us from harm. The problem is that most of these perceptions are not relevant to our modern culture and lifestyle. Perhaps you're still stuck because you're avoiding something like rejection, or any number of things, not because you think something will literally kill you and eat you for dinner. We are no longer avoiding what we don't trust because we're staying away from life-threatening danger, but because we are out of relationship with it. Our lack of trust comes from our lack of properly relating. I'm going to say this again. Our lack of trust comes from our lack of properly relating. When we avoid an aspect of life due to this, we lose access to its associated resources. For example, if we avoid exploration, we lose courage. If we avoid vulnerability, we lose intimacy. If we avoid feeling, we lose intuition. The more we avoid in life, the fewer resources we have access to. They're still there, but we can't make use of them. There is still love here, even if we close off to intimacy. We just don't have direct access to it. By facing and re-engaging in a healthy relationship with what we fear, mistrust, and avoid, we can regain access to any resources we may have abandoned. Everything in the following section is something that, if you stopped avoiding and came into proper relationship with, your life would become richer and work better. You may have all sorts of justifications and rationalizations on why you disagree. You may insist that your life is better by avoiding things such as intimacy, feeling, surrender, and responsibility. Of course you might. This is why you're avoiding it. These defenses are not based on truth, but on trauma, hurt, mistrust, fear, and distortion. From the perspective of pain, avoidance looks like safety, but this is an illusion that can never lead to peace. That's worth repeating. I should have bolded that in the book. That's worth repeating. From the perspective of pain, avoidance looks like safety. But this is an illusion that can never lead to peace. Yes, avoidance is a normal pain response. And now, at this point in your journey, it is what's keeping you stuck and oriented in opposition to healing. This work is about choosing to be fully alive, not to live in a fantasy without pain, discomfort, or the need to be courageous. It's not about eliminating everything that makes you human to live in a sterile, controlled, harmless life. This utopian ideal of life does not exist, and the quest for it only leads to more suffering. If only people in the current political landscape would understand this. I want to repeat this last paragraph. This work is about choosing to be fully alive, not to live in a fantasy without pain, discomfort, or the need to be courageous. It's not about eliminating everything that makes you human to live in a sterile, controlled, harmless life. This utopian ideal of life does not exist, and the quest for it only leads to more suffering. Look out into the world. Look out into the world. See certain people that desire the world to change, to become sterile, in order for them not to be hurt or offended. It does not exist. It is not real. That's not what life is about. Life is about being fully alive. So, all right. The avoidance keeping you stuck. The avoidant life is one of repression, the grandest being of feeling. So this is where we connect to last week's somatic meditation on anxiety. The avoidance of feeling is at the root of every avoidance. I'll say this again. The avoidance of feeling is at the root of every avoidance. We avoid because we don't want to feel uncomfortable, whether it's something too painful or something too loving. For example, we can avoid people because we don't want to For example, we can avoid people because we don't want to feel rejected or embarrassed, or because we are unwilling to allow ourselves to be loved and appreciated. We can avoid releasing our art because we don't want to feel criticized, or because we can't accept the praise of our gifts. We avoid the good as much as we avoid the bad. You may think to yourself, why would I ever avoid the good stuff? Yeah, well, that's a great question to ask. This avoidance is also the cause of much of our anxiety. An avoidance of feeling is the major source of anxiety arising in the body. An avoidance of the now is the major source of mental anxiety. This is why people feel anxious thinking about the future. Every time I see a client feeling anxious in their body, they're avoiding feeling. Every time I see anxiety in the mind, they are avoiding their body in the present moment, which is still related to feeling. When they stop avoiding, they are forced to be in their bodies, in the present moment, which results in feeling. This act of feeling is something the client is running away from because they think that what they feel is going to be painful or annihilating. When they start to feel, it can indeed feel that way. It can also feel compassionate and liberating. As they continue to feel more and more and avoid less and less, the client's anxiety around that story goes away for good. This happens when they penetrate the story and stop using it to justify their avoidance. This reveals that the epidemic of anxiety is not the cause of an avoidance of life, but the symptom of it. It's not that our anxiety causes us to avoid. It's that our avoidance causes us to become anxious. So this is less than 3 paragraphs. This was years of working with clients. So the material I got from this book wasn't from reading thousands of other people's books. This came from my own life experience, my own work in doing this work, and from working, having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, sessions, seeing where this stuff comes from in real clients, in their body. These 3 paragraphs contain so much revelation around anxiety. Now, at some point, I'm going to be writing a book just on anxiety. This is so powerful. If you can understand what I just said, you're going to be a 0.00001% of 8.5 billion people at the time of this recording. We'll see in 50 or 100 years how many people are on the planet. But at the time of this recording, you're going to be one of very few people that truly understand what anxiety is about. So many people are debilitated by their crippling anxiety, and they avoid everything in life. It's backward. It's backward. They have anxiety because they're avoiding feeling everything in life. And then it's a chicken or the egg, right? And then it's self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm going to read this again because I'm going to read a few parts of this again to just bring this point home. The avoidant life is one of repression, the grandest being of feeling. The avoidance of feeling is at the root of every avoidance. This avoidance also causes much of our anxiety. An avoidance of feeling is the major source of anxiety arising in the body. An avoidance of the now is the major source of mental anxiety. When they stop avoiding, they are forced to be in their bodies in the present moment, which results in feeling. When they start to feel, it can indeed feel that way, painful or annihilating. As they continue to feel more and more and avoid less and less, the client's anxiety around that story goes away for good. This happens when they penetrate the story and stop using it to justify their avoidance. We use our stories to justify why we avoid these things in life. When you stop that, you penetrate it, you face it, you feel it, you take responsibility for it, and it shifts. And then you get into a relationship with it. This reveals that the epidemic of anxiety is not the cause of an avoidance of life, but the symptom of it. It is not that our anxiety causes us to avoid, it's that our avoidance causes us to become anxious. When you start to feel, when you start to go into what you have been avoiding in your life, the anxiety starts to ramp up momentarily, and then you penetrate it, and then it goes away. Anxiety is not an emotion, it's a sensation. You don't get rid of anxiety like you get rid of sadness. Anxiety comes from an avoidance of feeling. So the only way to get rid of anxiety is to feel, is to go into it, not to avoid life more. That is life-changing for so many people. And that will conclude our reading today. Once again, my name is Andrew Daniel, the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. And we were just reading around the pages of 140 to 145 in the chapter of Avoidance of Life. So thank you so much for joining me for this reading. I will stick around for a few minutes to answer any questions or discussions, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Let me know how you like the book. All right, so Jay says, so by confronting the things that make you anxious, the anxiety will start to fade in a sense. Yeah, so it's less about the things in life. Those things in life represent something, right? So it's not just, all right, I'm avoiding going to work, or I'm avoiding talking to this person. By doing those things, it may help. It also may not, because it's not about those actual things. It's about your relationship to those things and what they represent, what's going on underneath the surface. So if that person represents pain, if they represent rejection, if the work represents oppression, whatever it is, whatever that story is, that is the root of the avoidance. Because if you were okay with those things, if you were at peace with those things, you wouldn't need to project it onto that person or that job or that ideology, whatever it is. So by going into it, by feeling and getting into relationship with that part of yourself that you don't want to feel, that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to see, the moment you don't want to be in, the part of your body that you don't want to be in. By starting that process, you may have a big breakthrough in a moment, in an instant, and the floodgates open and everything comes rushing through, or it may take repetition over time, bit by bit. But each step you take, you will feel less anxiety. If you're still feeling the anxiety, it's telling us that you're not actually going into the thing that you don't want to feel. And so there's so many ways that we con ourselves, that we trick ourselves, that the ego comes in and makes us think we're doing the thing, that makes us think we're following those instructions. But in actuality, it's just creating another layer of deception, of obfuscation, right, of distortion. So this is where it can be very helpful to get feedback, to know whether or not you're actually feeling that thing you don't want to feel, or you're just coming up with a way to bypass that. So it requires a very high level of awareness and honesty. In the end of the book, in the last chapter, I say, make truth the most important thing. And so you want to align to the truth, not to comfort, not to always feeling happy, not to success, but to the truth. And when you align to the truth, and you can say, okay, am I actually feeling this, or am I just finding another way to lie to myself and avoid this? It's going to help you penetrate those layers and get to the root of it. And it starts by being present, right? So not being in your head, thinking about the past or the future. You get present. You get still. You get quiet. And the stiller you get, the quieter you get, the louder that becomes. And so at first it may feel like it's getting worse because the anxiety is ramping up because you're getting quieter, right? The signal is getting higher as the noise drops. It's not really, it's just more obvious because there's less noise. That is the opportunity for you to see what is really happening. Most people have that experience and why they're so anxious and they start freaking out and they have to run away and avoid more. Because they think it's making their anxiety worse. Well, the truth is, it's illuminating the path out. It's showing them what needs to be healed. So if you can see this as your body telling you exactly what's happening so you can heal it, so you can address it, so you can face it, rather than more fuel for the story of anxiety and avoidance, you're going to have a tremendous breakthrough. So in those moments when you get quiet and still, and that starts ramping up, when you get more present, and that stuff starts ramping up, and you start feeling these uncomfortable things, that is the opportunity to then go into it and say, all right, let's feel this more. All right, I feel terrified. All right, let's go into that terror and actually let myself surrender to that terror. Oh, I'm feeling impending rejection. All right, let me go into that. Surrender. It is not necessarily easy. This is a very simple concept once you understand it. You don't need drugs and years of this and that, crazy 2-hour meditations every day. It's very simple. It's just not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to let yourself surrender to the feeling of annihilation, of rejection that you've been avoiding for 30 years. I get it. I know, because I've done it. I've done this stuff. I know that it takes tremendous courage. That's why later in the chapter, I talk about what's called the heroic life. The heroic life is the remedy to the avoidant life. It requires great courage to do what I'm inviting you to do. Make no mistake. But that's how you're going to start showing up to life. That is a heroic life rather than an avoidant life. And that's going to lead to less suffering. There may be more discomfort, but there's going to be less suffering. All right, so what else we got here? Jesse says, when anxieties come up and are felt, they keep coming until you address them again. Yes, so if you keep, two things can happen. One, if you feel them and they come up, and then you don't actually penetrate it, you don't actually finish that process out, it's going to come up again. You have to go 100% through it. Not 99, not 98, not 50%. You have to go 100% into that story, into that feeling. And you'll know because you'll feel something. Something will shift inside of you. You will feel a release, relaxation. You will cry. You will have a wave of emotion through your body. You'll have an epiphany. Something will shift. There will be a moment or multiple moments of epiphany, of realization, of shift, of change. That's how you'll know. And you'll know also when that same thing doesn't come up again and make you feel anxious. The second thing is it could be multiple aspects to it, right? Maybe your avoidance of social situations, your social anxiety, has multiple reasons to it, right? Maybe it was because you were abused as a kid. Maybe it was also because you were humiliated at college. Maybe it was also because you failed at speech class. Maybe because your second boyfriend or girlfriend, ridiculed you. Maybe you have like 4 or 5 of these major things that have caused you to be terrified of being around people. You go through one, all right, that's healed. Well, there's still other stuff that may be there causing it. So if you don't have the breakthrough, then it tells us that you didn't actually feel it and penetrate it 100%. If you did, and it's still there, it tells us that there's other layers to the onion, or there's other aspects to it that still need to be looked at and felt. Especially you have this over decades. You're doing this for 40 years of your life, 20 years of your life. There's stuff there. There's a lot of things in life. There's a lot of stories, a lot of reasons, justifications, a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff in our body. So this is very helpful to do a somatic-based practice. I recommend cinesomatics. I am biased, full disclosure. But something that has to do with the body, because it's going to help shift the nervous system as well. It's going to have a lot more power around feeling and emotion than just mental discussion. Agoda says, all this resonates for me. The anxiety is a symptom and not the cause, is a light bulb moment for me. I started a journey towards healing and feeling. It's been rewarding and transformative. Feeling is healing. It's difficult at times, but so worth it. I'm feeling my way home. That is beautiful. Absolutely. We have to feel it to heal it. There's no way. I've tried these modalities where they say, you don't have to feel anything. We'll just erase. We'll just clear and cancel and delete all the negative emotions in your life. It's not real. It's not real. It may take away the pain, but it doesn't heal you. Doesn't mean it's not helpful. Doesn't mean it's not a fine first step. If you're just in tremendous pain and you just need that pain to go away, that can be very helpful. But it doesn't give you the wisdom. It doesn't give you new resources. You don't learn anything. It just takes the pain away. And that can be fine. But the chances of you repeating this, the chances of it coming back somehow, the chances of you telling the story again and again are very, very high. So we need to feel it. And it's just a complete new relationship to feeling. It's not about feeling good. It's about feeling. Make feeling, whether it's good or bad, the point. So thank you for sharing. Great insights. Yeah, just that simple shift of realizing that the anxiety is a symptom and not the cause. Yeah, that's a turning point. All right, Jay says, by not experiencing life or avoiding it, it will raise our anxieties more, which is the vicious circle. Face it, not try to erase it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. Face it. Don't erase it. Don't erase it, face it. Yeah, that could be our new slogan. Andrew Daniel, 2024. Or Jay and Andrew, 2024. Face it. Don't erase it. All right. What else we got? Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys. Yeah, it works. Well, thank you guys for your ear. Thank you guys for showing up, for listening. I appreciate all of the comments and your contributions and sharing the questions. Once again, my name is Andrew Daniel. I am the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. And be sure to, I don't know what it is, follow here on Insight Timer. This replay and all the other replays are available on my YouTube channel. There's a clips and replays channel that I'm starting to upload all of these talks and somatic meditations to. So go and check those out. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, and have a great day. And stop avoiding life.